buy Kamusi, buy dictionary, buy atlas, buy all the school inputs that are needed and educate your kids. So what it means is that if we're to go with that, then you find that some kids, the children in that school are going to be disadvantaged because they're not going to get the supplies that they need.
And that's the question, especially because schools have gone back to school without capitation. But let's move on to page 3 of the Daily Nation there. And that's a story on bill proposes to give workers 15% relief on housing levy deduction. And look, there's been a lot of talk on the proposals in the Finance Bill 2024, and many of them not so positive. And so this particular proposal seeks to slightly ease the workers' burden, proposing a 15% relief on the housing levy contributions. And so someone earning a gross salary of about 50,000 shillings and has a housing levy contribution of 750 will earn a relief of about 112 shillings thereabout. You know, Mheshimiwa Kirwa, considering the conversation around the proposals in the finance bill, and we've seen it all, bread, you know, motor vehicle tax, and Kenyans say, goodness, how is it going to be the next financial year? What are your thoughts on this proposal and the proposals in the Finance Bill 2024 in general?
Yeah, Michelle, thank you again. This issue of the proposal to give workers 15% decrease, I'm in the Housing Committee. I sit in the Housing Committee. We got a chance to go throughout the whole country. We went to almost every county and we got a chance to sit down with most of the citizens and we got to hear what they wanted to say. One thing for sure, Michelle, is that people wanted these houses. That is for sure. But how to pay was an issue. And so the introduction of the housing levy so that they can use this money to fund these housing projects that we are building was, of course, the only way that we could go about it. Now, the problem is when you look at the wage bill and then you look at also the salaries of most of the public service employees, the taxes, of course, have gone up, and we have to agree that for sure the cost of living is still up, but the president has tried and Kenya Kwanza government has tried to bring it down as much as they can. But at the same time, the common mwananchi is still crying. And as such, when you look at a matter like this that is proposing that to bring it down by 15%. We can bring it down by 15%, but how are we going to fund these houses that we are going to build? They're already going on. The projects are going on. I actually feel for the common manage. I actually feel for most of the people who are working, because we're talking of taxes on bread, taxes on, of course, that is the only way the government, you know, there is, Michelle, if you look at how government funds its projects, it funds its projects through taxes. For us to have a road, we have to have taxes. For us to have water, we have to have taxes. For us to have good security, we have to pay taxes. And then at the end of the day, we are saying the only source of income for the government is through taxes.
The thing is, I don't think Kenyans have a problem paying taxes. It's always a conversation of we pay more and more taxes every year, but are we receiving services commensurate to the taxes that we are paying? So let's not even, it could be a heavy burden for you to bear, because you do sit on the Housing Committee.
I do.
Housing levy has been deducted for how many months now?
So I think it's now 3-4 months since they came back, because we went to court, and then now when it was now reinstated back officially.
About 3 months.
Yes.
And 2 months before that, which the court deemed illegal, but, obviously no compensation was made. So how much is on the ground from the affordable housing project that Kenyans can say, the last 6 months or 6 months of, cumulative of housing levy, here's what the government has been able to achieve?
And if you go around and look at it, there are several houses which are already going up. If you're here in Nairobi, there are several low-income housing. You go to Kisumu, low-income housing. You go to Eldoret, low-income housing, which are already going up. And Wananchi can see. Now, this will give them an opportunity actually to move from the slums and go to low-income housing or the social housing. And it's going to really make a difference. And the only way we are able to pay these contractors, because now we already have contractors on the ground. They're already breaking the ground. They're already building. Some of them are already completed. And so the only other way is to just, through this house levy. And I think most of the Kenyans are already seeing it. The only problem that we are seeing now is it too high for us to continue just submitting this housing levy? But to say that the money is not going to the right places, no. I have gone around, I've actually seen most of the projects that are already started, and we are getting value for the money. And I want to tell you, this is one of the signature projects that the president wanted to make sure that we have housing. And for sure, it is going to make a difference, Michelle. Let me tell you, if you look at countries like Philippines, if you go to other countries, so most of the countries where they were able to get is because of the housing projects that they started. You go to even the US, where I was there for over 20 years. It's because of the housing projects that really helped the economy to spur, at the same time, for people to get decent living. So I want to believe that this project, as much as it might be burdening one engine now, but when we look back some few years from now, it was the right thing to do. It is a sacrifice that we have to make as a nation. It's a sacrifice as we have to make as taxpayers. But at the end of the day, we will get value for money.
All right, I'd like to get your views on this, Kagombe, because, you know, Honorable Kira says, I sympathize with Kenyans, you know, with the state of the economy. But if we reduce the housing levy deductions, how are we going to fund the affordable housing project? And again, it becomes a conversation of prioritization. What are the needs of the people on a priority basis? What are your thoughts on this proposal, first of all, to give workers relief on the deductions?
First of all, relief on deductions is a welcome thing, because it's usual for workers to get relief on taxes that they pay. I mean, it's just a tax that has been paid, and therefore we get a relief on it. But I want to say that we must be very careful as Kenyans not to politicize everything, even what we need. Okay. I've been on this platform before, and we've said that one thing is that we're certain there is a need for housing. If you look at the recent happenings, for instance, of the floods, I don't know if you've realized that every development that has been done by the government, whether done in 1960 or 70 or 80 anywhere, was not as adversely affected by floods as were developments by private developers. That's one, because, you know, we have a tendency to be greedy in this country, and people have a tendency to make shortcuts. And that is why you find in very high-end estates like Runda and other places, people had actually built on riparian land. Now, it was easier then to break the law and to bribe, but you cannot bribe water. So when water came, then it reclaimed its rightful place, and then you found issues that we found. Now, when the government decides to take over an issue like housing, which really for me is just like security and health and education, housing is equally important, and therefore the government needs to have a stake in it. It's just like public transport. And very soon, when the government comes for public transport to create order like it is in every developed country, then you'll still find people opposed to it, because that's our nature. But I want to disabuse the notion, because I think we've been talking about this housing for now way too long. We are now coming into another budget cycle. We still are discussing what we were discussing a year ago, but it is good to explain the people. But we have a responsibility to educate our viewers and our listeners, to tell them exactly what this how the housing levy works. Absolutely. First of all, you remember that housing levy, the way the government had introduced it, was not a levy. It was introduced as a deduction that you're going to be returned to you, or that was going to be reclaimable in 7 years. What the intention was that is, if you go to Boma Yetu, then the money you contribute appears on that platform as part of your payment to the housing project. And this money is not used to go and build. We do not, unlike a lot of other monies that go to the consolidated fund, and then we come and appropriate that money in Parliament, the money on housing levy goes to a fund. This fund is supposed to give comfort to the contractors that Honorable Kira is talking about. When we give you as a contractor, you come with your own private money. The houses are being done on private money. But to give this contractor comfort that on the day you finish, whether Michelle will have taken up a house, or whether Honorable Kira or whether Kagombe will have taken up a house, the contractor will not stay waiting for their money to be paid. So that comfort is given by the fund, that there will be money available to pay you off once we have inspected and found that you have built these houses to the level or to the quality that we had agreed, and to the quality that was approved by the ministry. Once that has been done, then the contractor shall be paid by the fund or from the fund. Once the fund has paid the contractor, Then we shall go to the other side and decide how many people have bought these houses and how many people have paid and how much have they paid. And then the difference, and then the government is going to pay off the contractor, and then we shall continue paying off again to the fund. So when you take up a house, you'll be paying to the fund. And now, you know, Michelle, as we sit here and vilify and discuss the issue of housing and all those things, I want to tell you, I had a friend of mine who wanted from the city county, and he just called on other things, and he told me he wanted to get a house in Ruiru or Thika. And I told him, just go to Bomayetu and check over there and see. We have some houses that have been done. We had, I think, some 2,000 units in Ruiru and some 3,000 units coming up in Thika. I told him, you go to Bomayetu, look for the house that you would want, then I will advise you on how to proceed. And just to be certain that I'm giving proper advice, I went to Bomayetu myself. I realized there are no houses available.
All right.
All these houses that have been taken, that have been done, have been taken up by people. So as we sit here and complain,
I must take a break.
People have benefited from the housing project.
I must take a break, but it's a huge conversation on accountability. Who is taking up these houses? Have they been paid for?
These are Kenyans who are taking up these houses, and it is open for Kenyans to take up these houses. So don't ask, you go to Bomayetu, take up a house. Kenyans are doing that, and Kenyans have actually taken all the houses that have been done.
It's a conversation we must probe in a lot more detail, Mheshimiwa, as we take a break here on New Dawn. When we come back, that conversation on the Linturi impeachment saga as the Agriculture CS survives the impeachment motion and Select Committee finds allegations against him unsubstantiated. That conversation is coming back. We'll be taking a look at how MPs saved that CS post amid backlash on Parliament's integrity. Just stay with us.